What's up YouTube? So today I want to talk about a pretty exciting new plugin, Minimal Audio's Morph EQ. So I've been following them on their social medias for a little while and they've been posting some stuff about this. And just from the core idea initially, I was sold. I want to try explain why in this video, because I know quite a few people have been questioning, do they need another EQ? Do they need another filter? Because yes, I mean, you can do most things with a very advanced EQ. You can create any type of filters that you want. However, it's all in the simplicity in this plugin. I also quickly just want to give a quick shout out to Minimal Audio, who actually sent me this plugin for the purpose of this video. That being said, it hasn't actually altered my opinion of the plugin at all. Like I said, I was excited from the initial announcement anyway, and I've always really been a fan of their previous work like Rift and all sorts of stuff. However, there are a few kind of critical things that I might say about the plugin in this video. The opinions in this video are my own. Anyway, without further ado, let's have a look at Minimal Audio's Morph EQ. Let's dive in and have a look. So one thing to remember is it's called an EQ, yes. However, I would mostly use this in a kind of creative context as opposed to a mixing context. It can work as a traditional EQ. However, like I said, I think the truly special thing about this plugin is the morph system. Let me explain in a nutshell how the morph system works. So let's say, for example, we want to create some kind of formant filter. So a formant filter is generally created by 3 peaks in an audio that are at very specific frequencies. So let's say, for example, 500 hertz. Let's say, for example, 1500 hertz. And then here with this one, let's say 2500 hertz. So how the morph system works, let's just scale this all the way up to the top so that they're kind of equal. And you see where you've got this cross, where the cursor turns into a cross. So you can use that to kind of draw in a modulation curve. And you can also then use control click to just punch in a bunch of curves very quickly. If we modulate this morph knob, you'll see that throughout the entirety of that sweep, it morphs along the curve. So you're not limited to just straight curves. You can actually, each of these nodes, you can, create. It's very similar to Rift's curve system. However, there's no modulation in the plugin, but I'm going to get to that in a moment. So you can get some really wonky kind of curves going on. Right? So this is no longer a formant. I'm kind of just being a little bit creative over here. But we can then go to this EQ node and we can create our own, unique curve on how this one modulates. And let's just put in a bunch of weird curves like this. And then let's just, for argument's sake, add some to the top, to the last peak over here. But let's go the other way. So then let's just go like this. Add a curve here, let's go down, and then let's go back up again. So now what happens is when we morph this, you'll see all 3 nodes do their own thing. Yes, like I said, you can do this kind of filtering with almost any type of advanced EQ, like UVI shade, kilohertz slice EQ. In fact, I used to do a lot of this type of creative filtering in kilohertz slice EQ, and you can still do it. However, being able to apply so many different movements and so many weird and wonky shapes like this would require loading 3 remaps, or at least a remap for each EQ node. and then drawing it in, and each in its own window. The amount of time and the amount of clicks that it would take to actually do this kind of thing is quite extensively longer with any of the other EQ plugins. And on top of that, you can actually determine the exact frequencies that each of these nodes hits at each step. So for example, like you can get really mathematical with it, which we're going to in a moment. I want to bring up a chart of where to map formant frequencies, and we can kind of get some exact kind of vowel sounds going. But just for creative purposes, let me show you what this sounds like on a saw wave synth. And so now you don't only have the ability to morph between these parameters, you can actually shift all of the nodes together using these three parameters over here. So spread basically shifts left and right stereo spectrum differently. This is super interesting for creating really wide synth sounds. And then shifts the entire thing either up or down in the frequency spectrum, and pinches them either further outward or further inward from the center frequency. So this is just using the traditional EQ modes. We can, for example, set each of these into an actual filter mode, something like bandpass. So you can actually use these settings over here to quickly select EQ number 2, set this one to bandpass, and then EQ number 1, set this to bandpass. Now, they're actually all running in serial, so it's going to bandpass the sound, so only a few frequencies are coming through, and then the next one, it's only going to allow certain frequencies through. We don't want that. For this type of thing, if we're going to be bandpassing 3 EQs, and we want each of those frequencies to come through, we're going to want to set it to parallel. So this is going to sound a lot more vowel-y, because now we don't have the entire frequency range coming through, we only have the specific bands which we're choosing. You can actually use the scale mode to peak it even more to get like really resonant frequencies coming through. How freaking sick is that? You know, just the fundamentals of the EQ sound good, and it's just got that perfect modulation system where you can kind of create anything you want. So yes, just as a regular EQ, thumbs up. As a creative filtering tool, double thumbs up. What I want to do now is let's look at more traditional formant frequencies. So what I want to do is let's just set this back to default, and I believe for an E frequency, we want, I'm just reading it off a chart. I'll try to remember to post the link in the description so you guys can create your own. But I believe for an E frequency, we want a node. Okay, so for all of them, we want 3 nodes. So let's just set it up like this. And let's put them in parallel, and let's set each one to band pass. Band pass, band pass. And we can actually turn the Q up on each of them so that we've got more, and hear it more in the mix. Okay, so number 1, we want to set to 400. And I think number 2 then is 2000 and 3000. I believe with Formant filters, the top nodes, the top frequency bands are usually 1000 hertz apart. So this would be in 3000. Let's just see how this sounds. And then for like a ooh kind of vowel sound, we want the first band to sweep down. I wonder if there's a way to zoom, because now I can't actually see. What we should do is go like this, 46% on each one, and we can just scale it up. Yeah, that's probably the way to do it. Minimal people, if you're watching this, it would be cool to have an auto scaling so that you're always able to see the notes. Anyway, so for the ooh kind of frequency, we want this to go to about like 450. So we can control click and then punch in the exact frequency down here. We want it to not travel very far. Like whatever, it's not, we don't have to be exact, but the cool thing is you can be exact. And then the top frequencies are going to come down to 500 and 1.5. So this one comes down to 500 and this one comes down to 1.5. So let's try the sweep. And then the R, the top frequency comes down even further. So let's just say down to like here. And the bottom 2 sweep in a little bit higher. Something like this. Okay, let's try this out now. Okay, so we've gone too far with the top frequency, so we can leave it at the top morph parameter and then just move it here while we audition it. Okay, so then for like a or a kind of vowel, we want the first modifier or the first EQ node to go up to something like 900 hertz. If you make a mistake, you can just undo, which is pretty cool. No, we want just edit this one. It's going to go down to about 900. Sorry, I lie, 800. And then the top one is going to go to 1,000 and 2,000. Like this. So cool. I love it for these creative Formant things. I'm actually going to save this preset, Formant 1. So the one downside that I could find with the plugin, apart from the scaling thing with the interface here, is the lack of modulation, which is a bit strange considering how advanced the modulation system is in their previous plugin, Rift. However, that being said, is nowadays, especially the fact that the whole plugin is designed around this morph system, and the fact that nowadays most popular DAWs have modulation systems built in. I think if I were still using Cubase, it would be a very big hit. Not having that modulation system built into like a LFO or random or something built into a plugin, it would be a very big, whether I would actually enjoy the plugin or not. That being said, is, as most of you guys know, I'm using Bitwig a lot nowadays, and the modulation system in Bitwig just makes up for any other plugin's lack of modulation. So we can just add an LFO onto that morph parameter, and we got live LFOs when we need them. And we can also create like a random instead of an LFO. Let's use like a note on random, because I think that could be cool with this kind of formant sound. We set this to modulate the morph, and here if you set this to old and then you set this to note, each time a note is received at the input, it'll send a new random value. So now I want to just show you a bunch of stuff that I made with the plugin. It's also really, really good for quickly creating these like kind of neuro style greasy bass sounds. So like I said, these sounds are possible in a lot of other EQ plugins, but it's about the simplicity and how quick it is to get these kind of really complex morphing filter sounds going, and quickly modulate them with just a single kind of super macro type of thing. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comments. As always if you haven't yet, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel. I will see you guys next time. Cheers.